Shooting it raw?
Yes. Shooting it raw. Okay, now, look what... Okay, so this photograph is mind-blowingly amazing. Okay, so do you know who the photographer is? Is it you who made this photograph?
Talk about the photograph a little bit, Ran.
Okay, so it's a super beautiful, in terms of, if you're into the visual element of how photographs are rendered, it's a hyper crisp, beautiful shot of a church. And in front of the church, I'm assuming it's a church. Yeah, it's a church. In front of the church is this white horse wearing the various, I don't know, horse, the bridle and all this stuff with the saddle. And on it, I can't tell who it is, but it's a person, a figure, smiling with potentially jeans and a jacket. Is that you?
That's me.
What a great photo. It's so good.
Again, talking about going back to the beginning,
Yeah.
I grew up not in a city, but in the country. So I grew up riding horses. I've always loved horses.
Nice.
And another way to experience the Camino de Santiago is to ride a horse, to go by horseback.
Okay.
So the photo is actually of me in front of the cathedral. It's in Santiago de Compostela. There are not many people who ride horseback on a pilgrimage, and there are very few people who get that photo, which is one person, me, on a horse in front of the cathedral, nobody else. Because usually in that square in front of the cathedral, it's thronged with pilgrims and so forth. So this is an incredible shot. So to answer your first question, that photo was taken by another person who also did this horseback Camino with me. And I'd pass people my phone so they could take a picture of me on horseback on the trip.
Can you talk about the architecture? Because I'm too dumb to really address it. Because it's a beautiful, beautiful cathedral. So the sky behind is very wispy clouds, high cirrus clouds. So a little bit of blue, a little bit of white. It looks like it's morning, maybe, hard to know, or dawn or something. And the cathedral itself is, like, the stone is kind of brown and ash, and then the windows really make this nice sort of bluish reflection of the sky, and it's kind of echoed in your clothing. And this white horse, I mean, like, this image is so good. So can you talk about, first of all, either the architecture or when you look back and you think back and when you look at this image, what is the essence of why this is such a potentially inspiring image?
Well, again, almost nobody does a horseback Camino, so that in itself makes it unique. But to have that image of me, only me and my horse, whose name is Picasso, in front of the cathedral is incredible.
Awesome.
So one of the problems I have as a writer is I tend to write niche books. So this is a niche of a niche of a niche book. So, who's going to buy the book? But anybody who really wants to have a unique experience, this is going to be my next book, is why it's the last photo I sent to you. I've already written about walking the Camino, and now I'm going to write a smaller book about riding, the horseback riding. So the art and architecture is one of the things I love. And in my first book, there's a lot of art and architecture. And it's something, you could do an art history course by walking the Camino.
For sure.
Because, you'll see Romanesque churches, and then you'll see low Gothic and middle Gothic, high Gothic, and then you go on to everything from Rococo to Baroque to all of this. But this cathedral, the specific one in Santiago, is the third church that was built on this site. So in 822, they built the first one. It was just a tiny place. Then all these pilgrims started coming, so they built a bigger one, and then and then more and more people are coming, so they built the cathedral, which is there now, and it is a gorgeous cathedral, and they've just finished fixing it up, repairing it, cleaning it, doing everything that they needed to do to get ready for this year and last year, which are Jubilee years. Okay. They're special years when a door called the Holy Door is opened, and as a Catholic, if you believe in what the church tells you, if you walk through that holy door, you get special indulgences, which
Hmm.
cuts off the amount of time it takes you to get to heaven, as opposed to spending more time in purgatory where you have to make up for all your sins while you were on earth. Anyway, it's a special year, so they did a lot of work in cleaning it up. And it's a beautiful cathedral. It's Gothic, and it's not as magnificent, I would say, as two other cathedrals on the route, which are the cathedral in Burgos and the cathedral in Leon. That shot that I did before on the cathedral windows on my first book, that's
Right.
the stained glass windows from Leon Cathedral, and they are spectacular.
Wow.
This cathedral is it's spiritual and emotional because you
Hmm.
go there and you know that St. James is buried there, but it's been the place where millions of pilgrims over the years have come. So it's you feel all the way along the Camino that you're traveling in the footsteps of so many other people who've come before
Right.
you.
Yep, I know that feeling for sure. Basically, you walk around the old city of Jerusalem and you're very much aware of, oh, wow, this is like where people walked 2,000 years ago, getting their produce and doing and there's a connection. Do you feel that in doing this pilgrimage, like how did that shape your subconscious? There are going to be things that bubble up from your subconscious that are not necessarily significant or they're meaningful to you, but aren't keys to some other world. But as a subjective experience, as you doing this on a horse, which is a very intimate connection to another being, because you are basically being carried. And like, I know enough about horses to know that some of them are jerks and some of them are sweet and some of them, so why don't you talk about what that was like to be on a horse and how that infused itself into your subconscious?
Well, I mentioned I grew up writing, but because of my profession and my life, I haven't written much in my older adulthood. So I knew I was going to have to train for this
Mm-hmm.
adventure. I started writing in May, and I quickly realized that things weren't quite right.
Okay.
I should be getting accustomed to riding, but I was in a lot of pain. And I
Right.
mean, after an hour on horseback, I was in a lot of pain.
It's
And to
tough.
do
Yeah.
this Camino, I would have to be on horseback 4 to 6 hours a day.
Wow.
So I kept training all summer. And at the end, I said, okay, either I cancel and don't go, or I just accept that I cannot do this the way I thought I was going to do it. And maybe I'll
Sure.
just ride 1 hour a day, and that's it. That's all I can do. So that I contacted the trip organizer, and they said they could accommodate that. So I just went
Okay.
on. So I would say that what happened to me, it's I don't know. I don't want to overemphasize this, but I was not aware I had back problems, and I learned I had back problems, and that's what's
Mm.
causing the pain. And it's like, all right, I'm not 50 years old anymore. I'm not even 40. I mean,
Mm.
60. I am getting up there, and I have to accept this.
Right.
And I have to accept that my ambition and my desire, sometimes it won't happen. I can't do
Sure.
it. I have to be willing to settle for less. And that's, for me, hard.
So, I want to say, sister, you're hitting home because, yeah, I just hit 50, or I'm hitting 50, or whatever, and I know it's essentially over time. It just the curve just decreases, but life is a gift, and we make the most. We make every second count. Seems to me that the ambition or the vision or the aspiration of, oh, I'll ride for 6 hours a day and it'll be great, and then you're actually on a horse for an hour and you're just like, you know what, this is a lot. My body is not quite up to the challenge. So it's a very meditative zen awareness, I guess. I mean, you tell me.
Well, the interesting thing was I ended up, I'd never done it in all my training, but I rode 4 hours the days that 4 hours had to be ridden. I rode one day 6 hours, and another day was supposed to be 6 hours. I only rode 4 hours, but I didn't think I could do that. And I really couldn't do that. And the only way I did it was I was praying constantly after about the
Mm,
first hour. I prayed more in that Camino than I prayed since I was probably a teenager. So, and you're right about the connection between a person and a horse. I love horses, but to be on horseback and to be out in the countryside in the nature and going along, and the experience of being with a community of other pilgrims, it was all very, it's an experience that I will never have again. And it was unique. People talk about walking the Camino as being unique, but I could go back next week and walk the Camino again.
Mm.
I'm never going to be able to go back and ride the Camino. I just can't do it.
So were you always on that particular horse?
Yes, that was my designated horse for the trip.
Picasso is one hell of a good-looking horse.
He was a gentleman the whole way. I have to say that.
Amazing. Julie, the conversation is already done. It's so great.
So when I picked my photos for you, I wanted to do one about my past as a diplomat, one about my present as an author, one about my present as a publisher, and one about my future, which is a book I'm going to write about riding the Camino. So you've seen 4 times in my life.
You delivered. Thank you so much. This was great.
Rand, thank you. I really appreciate the opportunity to talk with you and through you to your audience. And
Sure.
Boy, maybe we can meet in Jerusalem sometime in the future.
Next year in Jerusalem.
Exactly.
Or Houston. Houston is the Jerusalem of the United States.
I don't think that. Houston is an underrated city. It's a fabulous place.
I loved Houston. I've been there once. I loved it. So is life really a gift? Really? Can you make every second count? That's the whole point of the podcast. So if you like what you've seen and you're inspired, because that really is my mission, then please give it a like, subscribe, and share.
Shooting it raw?
Yes, shooting it raw.